welcome to SYO Sundays. I am Lana Stafford, the Symphoria Youth Orchestra Manager, and today we are going to be having the Symphoria Principal Trombone Player, Ben Dettelback, as our guest, and it looks like Ben just joined. Okay, Ben is joining us right now. Again, I'm Lana Stafford, Symphoria Youth Orchestra Manager. This is SYO Sunday live Q&A. And Ben, I just added you, so hopefully this will come in soon. Hi guys. If anyone has any questions for Ben, feel free to leave them in the comments. Also, I'd love to just have everyone say hi. You can leave your favorite emoji. See, Ben, are you there? Thanks for your patience, everybody. Hope that you're having a good weekend. Oh, there you are. Hi, Ben.
Oh, hi.
I did it.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, good. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction for anyone who doesn't know you. You've been a coach for our youth orchestra sectionals, leading up the brass sectionals for the Symphoria Youth Repertory Orchestra as well as the Young Artists Orchestra. And you are the principal trombone player in Symphoria. And see, I know that you are from New Jersey and also went to school for trombone performance. So could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey, and I'm actually here right now. I'm hanging out with my parents and my family during the pandemic, so very grateful to be back here. But I went to school in New Jersey. I did high school in New Jersey, and then I went to the Eastman School in Rochester for my undergrad, and I just graduated almost exactly a year ago now. So May of 2019, and
Awesome.
I joined Symphoria actually 2 days before my graduation. So there was an audition for that, and then I was lucky enough to win that audition, and graduated 2 days later. So
Yeah, that's pretty awesome to be able to go right from Eastman School of Music and land a professional orchestral job.
yeah, I've been extremely, extremely fortunate.
Yeah, that had to feel awesome. So were you auditioning for other orchestras as well?
Yeah, I mean, I was basically taking every audition that was coming up within reason. There, I don't really remember exactly which auditions there were because I've taken a bunch now. But I had taken a couple leading up to Symphoria, and then not won any of those, obviously. And then I ended up getting the Symphoria job, and that's where I ended up.
Well, fantastic. So I wanted to next ask you just a little bit about your experience this year. I think that you were with us for a few different sectional days. What was it like working with the youth orchestra brass players, and like what do you enjoy, and what were your coaching ideas going in? I know you brought a giant speaker with you.
Well, I had never really coached a section that was that high level before, to be honest. I had done some work at some local middle schools and some local high schools and stuff, doing sectionals, but the Symphoria Youth Orchestra and the Youth Repertory Orchestra were really really advanced, and I am not that much older than them. I think the biggest age difference was probably 6 years. So it was kind of strange for me at first to go into it because I didn't want to seem like I was talking down to them or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all really awesome kids, and they're great at what they do, and they made it really easy for me. The thing I remember from being in youth orchestra, probably the fondest memories I have from youth orchestra are just the friends that I made there. So I think it's really great that they can be around other high-level musicians that are interested and passionate about orchestra, because it's kind of a niche thing nowadays, and I know for me that was really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something you get to do every week. It's sort of like going
Yeah.
to All County every week or something.
Yeah,
What
for
was the
sure.
name of your youth orchestra in New Jersey?
I was just called the New Jersey Youth Orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of a similar program, but just a little bit bigger. It's been around for a little longer. But so they have the New Jersey Youth Symphony, which is the oldest group. That's the one that I was lucky enough to be in. And then they have Youth Orchestra, which is a little younger. And then they have a bunch of beginner string and flute woodwind groups. So it's a really awesome program. And I was really lucky to be in it. So,
Cool. Um, so I also kind of just wanted to jump maybe towards the end of your undergrad experience in the conservatory at the Eastman School. And just what was it like, the change in mindset for you to be thinking forward towards a professional career? And do you have any advice for anyone who's going into music?
um, uh, how do you mean? Just how I transitioned from being a student to kind of being an adult, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess I'm kind of thinking too about, um, like just staying motivated with practicing and thinking towards,
Mm,
taking auditions and, feeling like you're ready to do that.
sure. I mean, I think the transition for me was a little more gradual, just because when I took my first professional audition in the beginning of my sophomore year at Eastman, so I had always kind of known that I wanted to be in an orchestra or try to make it as an orchestral performer. So when I got to Eastman, as soon as I saw an audition that was close and wasn't that expensive for me to go take, I went and took it. Um, so for me, that was the Navy Band, which is down in DC. Had an opening when I was a
Mm-hmm.
sophomore, and a friend of mine and I drove down together, and his parents live right there, so we just stayed with them the night before, and I took the audition, and I didn't do well. I was not very good, but it was a really good learning experience for me because I had never done something like that. And a lot of people wait um, until they're seniors or even grad students to take professional auditions when they know that that's what they want to do. But I think, and they wait because they don't feel ready. But I think a lot of the audition process is just learning how to do the audition. So you could be the best player there that day, and you can just play really badly because you're not ready for the audition. So it's another part of performing that I think is really important and sometimes people don't think about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, that just meant trying and trying again. I think I had taken like 10 or 15 auditions before I won one. Um, and a lot of the auditions I went to, I didn't really feel ready, but I felt ready enough um, or I didn't feel ready to necessarily win the entire audition, but I felt ready to play my best on more of the standard excerpts that I figured they would ask in the first round. And sometimes I advanced, and a lot of times I didn't. So, but even just going there and playing and being under pressure and getting really nervous and figuring out how to deal with your shakes and how to not forget a water bottle when you're going and how to take your time and understand the pacing of things, I think is really important.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome. Like you systematize your warm up maybe a little bit.
Yeah, completely. For the military band auditions, they always start in the morning. So sophomore year at Eastman, I got up and was warming up at 7:30 every day of the week. And then when it came time for a 9 o'clock audition, it was really not a big deal because I was warmed up by 8:15.
That's doesn't sound like the most fun, but pretty practical when you have to take a morning audition.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's not a a hat I can just put on. I mean, now I haven't been warming up anywhere close to 7 o'clock in the morning. So if I had an audition tomorrow at 7:30, I probably would play pretty badly. But if you gave me a week or two, I warmed up every day in the morning, it probably wouldn't faze me.
So I like how you're pretty open about, on paper it looks like you um, started your first professional job at an orchestra 2 days before you graduated undergrad, but the
Hmm.
reality was you took 10 or 15 professional auditions while you were in your undergrad
Oh yeah.
and went through that process.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, um, yeah, a lot of people have taken upwards of 40 to 50 auditions and not won one. So I mean, I feel really lucky to be where I am, and but at the same time, I think it's important to say that I haven't. It's not like I took my first audition and won it out of the blue. It was like I've taken I put a lot of thought into the audition process itself, and it's something that I've been pretty invested in. Um, and it's not even necessarily a trombone thing. It's just a you thing, trying to figure out how you prepare and what works for you. And sometimes that doesn't even involve your instrument. A lot of times. So
Kind of like a mental and emotional, and even you have to be physically warmed up because, like you said, you have to deal with shakes. Like you might have
yeah,
to,
uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah, like I drink coffee every morning, but if I have an audition, I don't drink coffee until after.
that's a super good idea.
I think that's the only real ritual that I have is I don't drink coffee. Um, it was funny. I took an audition in Pittsburgh last year for the Pittsburgh Opera. Had a second trombone audition. It was the beginning, or I guess it was 2 years ago now, but it was the beginning of my senior year at Eastman, and I played in my friend's recital the night before in Rochester, and it was a really bad idea, but I played in my friend's recital, and his recital was at 9 p.m. And then it was over at 10:30, and my friend and I drove from Rochester to Pittsburgh, which is a 6 hour drive, I believe,
Yeah,
5, 6 hour drive. And we drove straight, and then we got there at like 3:30 in the morning. And I had arranged it with my friend to crash on his couch. So we got there like 3, 4:30 in the morning, and then went to sleep on my friend's couch. He had left the door open for me, and then the audition was at 11. So that was one of the dumber things I did, but I was really into taking auditions, and
wow.
I didn't think I was going to advance because I thought I played really terribly. So after the round, my friend and I immediately went and got giant cups of coffee. And then I came back for the results, and somehow I had magically advanced. And so realized I was in the second round, and I had just drank like a 20-ounce cup of coffee.
You're pretty
So
wired.
yeah, it was not good, and I didn't advance past that. But just goes to show it. You learn something at every audition. So
Definitely, absolutely. So, for anyone joining us, I am Lana Stafford, the Symphoria Youth Orchestra Manager, and I'm here with Ben Dettelback, who's Principal Trombone in Symphoria. And I think Ben is wearing a hoodie for being a youth orchestra coach.
oh yeah,
Yep, there's our youth orchestra merch. Pretty awesome. Um, so, I am curious if you would like to share any favorite moments of being in Symphoria this year, or anything you can talk about being in Symphoria.
sure. I think one of my favorite moments so far was probably the first Masterworks concert we did this year, and it was where we played Brahms' Fourth Symphony, and I think it was probably one of the if not the most kind of trombone-filled concerts that we've we did. I was really looking forward to the Copland Third Symphony concert that was going to be in May, but unfortunately it has been canceled. But the Brahms concert, it was my first concert in the orchestra where I was playing as a contracted musician, and I had subbed a handful of times before in the previous years, just being living in Rochester. Um, but this was my first real concert. It was the first time I played principal. I had only ever subbed on second trombone, so I was playing for the first time, and it's kind of a big trombone piece for us. There's a big chorale excerpt in the fourth movement, as well as
Mm-hmm.
we play the Passacaglia theme in the beginning of the fourth movement, and we also tacit the first three movements. So we basically sit there
It's a long
with
time to sit
yeah,
there.
we sit there and let our horns get really cold for
Cold.
about 30 minutes, and then we have to play really loud and really in tune. Um, and yes, that is the role of the trombone player, but it doesn't make it any more fun. And I was really nervous, but the concert went well, and the brass section was super supportive and awesome, and it was really easy for me to just fit right in there, and I pretty much just immediately felt really at home with them, and uh, it was just a great concert, and it was really fun for me.
That's fantastic. And you get to play in a lot of different venues with Symphoria, but is playing in Cross Heinz your favorite?
Probably. Yeah, I like playing in Cross Heinz. It's a really awesome theater. It's giant. The Kodak Theater at Eastman is also giant, but in a different way. The trombones really get sucked up at Eastman. You can't really hear them unless they're really playing loud. But Cross Heinz, you can it it takes what you give it, so that's fun. Actually, my first concert as a full Symphoria musician was the day before the Brahms concert in that park downtown, kind of by St. Paul's. I'm blanking on Lemp
Oh, was that
Park,
Lemp Park
I think.
by the
And
Jewels? Mm-hmm.
yeah, and we just played an hour of brass quintet music there.
Cool.
And that was really fun too.
Yeah, it's awesome that you get to do a little bit of chamber music along with being in the orchestra.
Definitely.
Yeah. Um, so I'm I'm thinking are several different things that we could talk about, but I know that you have been to Europe, and I was wondering, were you at a summer festival? Um,
Yeah, I spent the last 2 summers in Graz, Austria, where I was participating in a festival there called the American Institute of Musical Studies, or AIMS for short. And basically, it's a vocal festival where the orchestra is kind of just the house band for the singers.
okay.
And so we would back them up in concerts where they would compete with arias and learn how to be kind of an operatic singer. And then we would also we'd fill out the concert with orchestra works. So this past year, we did the Firebird Suite by Stravinsky, and we did Dvorak's Ninth Symphony, and just a bunch of other concerts. It's a 5.5 week festival, so I got to spend
Wow.
just about 11 weeks in Austria the past 2 summers, which was really awesome.
That
Um,
sounds really fun. And
yeah,
also, what a nice amount of time to be able to connect with your community of fellow orchestra players, maybe singers,
yeah,
and make a lot of friends.
it was a really cool experience for me because the first time I went, I had just finished my junior year at Eastman, and the orchestra is made up of mostly adults. So I felt like a little kid in this orchestra, because I was 20 and everybody else was, or probably 80% of the orchestra was well over 30.
Mm.
So it was kind of a big shock for me because as an undergrad, I was applying to a bunch of festivals thinking that it was going to be undergrads at these festivals. And when I got to Ames, the first time I had very few undergrad friends, which was a blessing and a curse because it was definitely more of a transition to find friends. But at the same time, I made a lot of other friends that I didn't expect to make. And I still talk to them and interact with them to this day, even if they're 50.
That's awesome. And did you get to hang out in Graz as well in
Yep.
Austria and see some other cultural things?
Yeah, the cool thing about one of the other many cool things about Ames is that they treat the orchestra kind of like just a professional orchestra, where where we'd have three days of work where it would be rehearsal, and then rehearsal and concert, and then you get 4 days off. So I don't think there are really any other festivals like that out there where you get 4 days of free time in
That's a lot of
Austria.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, every week too.
that sounds really unusual and
Yeah, very unusual, and it was not what I was expecting at all the first time I went, but I grew to love it, and it's an awesome festival, and I totally recommend it.
cool. Do you have any encouragement for anyone thinking about, trying for things that they might be nervous to try for, like a summer festival or master classes, or just trying for things in general?
Um, I mean, I don't think I have any unique uh, motivational speaking things for people to go for things they don't think they're going to get. But I mean, you never know. I didn't really think that I would be. Well, I'm definitely in a place now that I never expected to be in, and I'm very grateful to be here. Um, so I think if you put yourself out there and you try things and you really give it your best effort, you never know what's going to happen. So there's no reason not to.
Very true. And I wanted to say hi to Eduardo, who said hello a minute ago. Hi,
Oh, hey,
Eduardo.
Eduardo.
He's the principal oboe in Symphoria, and I met him at the Super Bowl party, the Symphoria Super Bowl party that Ben was at too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just thinking about a couple of other things. You have been featured on Symphoria's Facebook with your a cappella multi-track chamber music. Is that pretty easy to use?
Yeah, the acapella app is very user friendly. It's really easy to use. I it took me a little while to figure out the microphone settings because with trombone you can really overblow the mic and it just comes out as like the whole time, even if it's supposed to be music. But yeah, it's really easy to use and I have a great time with it. I just figured out how to do it manually without the app on my computer and use a little bit nicer of a microphone. So I recorded something for Kelly Covert and our WCNY concert for our time, which is going to be on May 9th. So I just recorded a little something for that using a little nicer of a microphone so it
Oh, fantastic.
doesn't sound as DIY on my cell phone.
Sure.
But yeah, the acapella app, it's a great way to make music without any friends, which is something that a lot of us are going through right now.
Yeah, it seems like a good way to keep occupied
Mm-hmm.
as a musician, have a little goal, something
Yeah.
that you want to make.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty cool. Hey, so I wanted to also ask, do you have any listening recommendations for maybe for youth orchestra, whether that's brass players or just some really great symphonic music that we should be listening to? Like, what are your top recommendations?
Oh boy. Um, what am I listening to right now? Um, I don't know if I can look at my iTunes because I'm on my phone right now. But I've been listening to, well, honestly, I was listening to Copeland 3 a lot, looking at that music because I've never performed it before. I've honestly never even uh, looked at it before this year, so I've been listening to that piece a lot. But so in turn, I was listening to a lot of Copeland and things that it's kind of how his pieces work together. There are a lot of aspects from his other compositions in his Third Symphony. So I was kind of looking through all of his other works, or a lot of his other works, and trying to see how they interconnected. And I thought that was really interesting. You can hear a lot of things from Appalachian Spring and his Rodeo in the Third Symphony that are really cool. And then you also find a lot of unique things to the Third Symphony, a lot of themes and a lot of harmonies that are really only in that symphony, and you can't find them in his other works. So, um,
It sounds like you really are a musician who kind of analyzes and really thinks about the piece as a whole and where it sits sort of historically, um, and that you're not just counting rests and then playing your part.
I guess sometimes. I mean, I think every trombone player goes through a phase where they only listen to Bruckner 8 and Alpine Symphony and Mahler 3. But I mean, the we're definitely not the violin section. We don't play nearly enough to really justify not listening to the whole piece. So I think if you're a trombone player and you haven't listened to the whole piece, you're really missing out. And there's a lot of music that doesn't have any trombones in it. So part of that is learning how to be a trombone player who doesn't listen to trombone music all the time. And my undergrad friends can tell you that I am a trombone player who has listened to a lot of trombone music. And I mean, I love trombone, but it's pretty easy to get sick of it. Um, and so, yeah, sometimes you have to, I think you just have to get to a deeper level of understanding.
I think that that's kind of like great advice for anyone who's also, because we could always kind of go for a greater level of understanding when
Hmm.
we're listening to something, and you can hear more things upon listening to something again.
Definitely. And every time I play a piece that I've already played, I hear something different and realize something different or understand something else about the music that I didn't understand the first time I played it because I was so buried in my own part.
I heard you say something, I remember you saying something to me one time after one of the youth orchestra coaching days, and you were talking about listening across the ensemble and how that's kind of a skill that maybe we don't talk about enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was in youth orchestra, I was excited to go there because we were going to play really loud and it was going to be really cool and fun and energizing to just like kind of steamroll the rest of the orchestra and not listen to the strings because their parts weren't as cool as ours. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to appreciate the whole orchestra. And I have always had a love for the trombone and the trombone section and the brass section, but it took me a little bit longer to appreciate uh, what the violas were doing and how that interacts with what the trombones are doing because we're all trying to just make music together and all of the parts are important even if it's not the melody, and I know what it's like to not have the melody as a trombone player. So um, yeah, I think that's just something you develop over time.
For sure. But I also remember being in the youth orchestra here in Syracuse and just what a powerful, it was like being inside of a speaker or something, just like
Hmm.
sound all around you, all sides.
Definitely.
Um, and yeah, I really can't wait for the youth orchestras and Symphoria to be able to play together again.
Yeah.
Um, if anyone has any questions, feel free to leave a comment or say hi. And thanks for spending this time with us. Um, so, are there any other things that you wanted to talk about, or anything that comes to mind regarding youth orchestra or just being a musician, keeping your motivation up during social distancing, anything you've been doing for fun?
Um, I've been watching a lot of Community on Netflix, but I didn't really have anything specific that I wanted to plug or anything.
Cool, very cool. Um, Awesome. I also wanted to let you know that on your At Home with Symphoria interview, you had recommended Sibelius 5 as something that you were listening to.
Sure.
And I went and listened to the first movement of that, and it was pretty awesome. I only knew
Yeah.
like Sibelius, violin concerto, and I think I've played the second symphony.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like there's so much music out there, and yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, the rest of that symphony has a lot of really awesome woodwind parts in it too. I think I can't remember if it's the second or the third movement, but that was one of the pieces I did at Ames my first summer, and I remember specifically about that piece being struck by the usage of the woodwinds. It's and it being very beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just some of the other pieces you mentioned today gives me ideas of what to put on while I'm doing my dishes or something. A Mahler 3, or I
Yeah.
don't I don't even remember what Bruckner 8 would be like. So, and I haven't
Uh,
listened to the Alpine Symphony in a long time,
mm-hmm.
or Copland 3. So,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty cool. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of your afternoon, and thanks for the youth orchestra students who joined in and listened in. We are doing this as a time to come together online. We would normally be having youth orchestra rehearsal right now, getting ready for our spring concert. But you can connect with Symphoria online with, um, we just got a new question in from Isabella, who's a trumpet player.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to know how you decided and what the process was like about how just choosing what college to go to.
Sure. So it took me kind of a while to decide which college I was going to attend. I my junior year, the end of my junior year of high school, I kind of decided I wanted to do trombone full time, and I wasn't sure if that meant studying at a big university, kind of like an Indiana university or a Syracuse university or a Michigan, where you can do a double major really easily in music and something else, or if I wanted to do the conservatory route and try to apply to places like Eastman and Peabody Conservatory and Juilliard and all the other name brand ones, you know. And I ended up doing the conservatory route mostly, and I applied to a bunch of conservatories, um, and I ended up getting into a couple of schools, uh, Eastman being my top choice just because it's kind of a trombone school. They have a lot of history with trombone. Um,
Never knew that.
yeah, actually, the first trombone choir ever was founded at Eastman
Wow.
um, under Emery Remington, who you probably did it. He created some long tone exercises. Um,
Okay.
but so I ended up getting into Eastman and Peabody, and then also a couple of other random schools. But Eastman, I just felt really at home when I had visited there, and the audition day process was really great. Um, and I really liked the teachers, and I had met trombone players there, and I thought that it was a place I wanted to study, and I thought I would thrive there. So I was lucky enough to get enough financial aid to be able to attend, and it ended up being a great choice for me. But I would say if you are thinking about going into music, I would suggest applying to kind of a broad range of schools, unless unless you really think that uh, music is the only thing you want to do, and um, you there's nothing else that you could possibly do and survive. Um, I mean, if you feel that way, then you can apply. You should apply to only conservatories and places where you can only study music. But I think it's a good place to be surrounded by a broad variety of things to do. I mean, even at Eastman, we had the University of Rochester where you could take other classes in sciences and maths if you wanted to. Um, so I think just don't cut yourself off from anything. And because a lot of people will end up going to a conservatory and then changing their mind halfway through. And if you're at a bigger school, there's a little more leeway, a little more wiggle room.
Because you might be taking some general education classes at a bigger school that would
Sure.
be more of a basis for another degree if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to switch.
But also, in the other direction, if you're thinking about only applying to state schools and not conservatories, maybe because you don't think you'll get in, I mean, you never know until you apply and audition. If you don't apply to Juilliard, then you never know if you would have gotten in. So I don't think there's any harm in applying.
Totally true. And I also wanted to sort of emphasize the point that you made where you really felt at home at Eastman when you went and visited,
Mm-hmm.
and just how you find out a lot of information when you go to a place and
Definitely.
meet the teacher and talk to students
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in the
and something
program.
else that's important for if you're auditioning for different studios at music schools is meeting with the teacher is not essential, but I think it is important because the teachers there are looking for a good fit for the studio and a good addition to kind of like the environment that the studio creates. And just kind of putting yourself out there and talking with them and letting them get to know you a little bit can only really help you.
Definitely. And are you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but are you thinking about further education? Like some
Sure.
people go for a master's in
Yeah,
performance.
I think this year has kind of showed me that I do want to continue learning and eventually, I haven't really done a lot of teaching, but I found that it's something that I do want to pursue, and a lot of uh, I think something I'd be interested in is teaching at the university level. And in order to get one of those jobs, you kind of need more than a bachelor's. So I did apply for some master's programs, and I'm happy to say that I'm going to be going to Yale University in the fall to do a master's in trombone.
Wow.
And I'm still going to be in Symphoria
Congratulations.
playing part time. Thank you. But I'll be around Syracuse just playing part time. Um, I'm not really sure what the exact details are yet, just because Symphoria is kind of on a halt right now with making new contracts. So I'm gonna kind of not to get too nitty gritty, but I'm in the process of amending my contract a little bit so I can still fulfill my duties in Symphoria and also further my trombone education. So I'm
Awesome.
very excited about it.
And you'll be going for a master's in performance?
Yep, it'll be a Masters of Music, uh, applied trombone, I believe, is the technical term.
That's great. It just goes to show that you'll always be learning and you can always grow.
For sure. Yeah, I have tons of learning that I still need to do. I'm not even close.
That's pretty exciting. Um, awesome. Well, I'd love to keep chatting with you, but we're a little bit past what we normally would do for SYO Sunday
Whoops.
Instagram Live. If there are any more questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments. Oh, I see. I wanted to ask you, had you been to any SYO concerts this year? Were
I
you able to
haven't
go?
been able to, unfortunately, but hopefully I can in the future.
Yeah, cool. Um, Awesome. So I feel like I got through a lot of our questions. Yeah. So thank you so much for chatting again
Yeah,
and telling us a little bit more of your story and where you're at, because I know that we have a lot of aspiring musicians who are out there, and
yeah, of
you
course.
definitely have a great story. So pretty cool. And yeah, I guess I will say bye to everyone. And Ben, I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks for everyone for joining.
Cool.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.